A relationship with people who want to hear what I think is the truth, and I'm going to present both sides. And they may not be fair and balanced. There may not be equal weight put to each side, because that's not what the truth is. The truth isn't always 50-50.
Right.
So I live with that, but it gets more difficult because we're so tribal now.
Donald Trump has spent a lot of time criticizing you. You told me a couple years ago on air that you were afraid of what Trump could theoretically do if he ever were returned to the White House. How do you feel now?
Yeah, it's possible. Do I think he's going to start arresting comedians? I don't.
Bill Maher's sharp critiques have taken aim at many in the media. But few exchanges have been as intense as his recent clash with CNN's Jake Tapper. What started as a disagreement quickly escalated into a full-blown ideological face-off that sent ripples through the world of cable news. The tension was real, the stakes were high, and we've got all the details, so buckle up.
Early on, you say that Trump, quote, got the White House again, but he isn't going to get your mind. There are probably a lot of viewers that want to hear what you mean by that and how you want to achieve that.
So I'm not going to chase every rabbit down the hole like I did the first term. You know, that's what I mean about he's not going to get my mind.
Jake Tapper opened the segment by trying to nudge Bill Maher into delivering a classic Trump roast. Bring up the topic, then sit back and wait for fireworks. But Maher didn't bite. Instead, he calmly sidestepped and made it clear he wasn't going down that path again. No rants, no takedowns, just a quiet pivot that left Tapper visibly off guard. So what changed? Has Maher softened on Trump? It's unclear, but it's a noticeable shift. The Maher of old likely would have jumped at the chance, unloaded on Trump, and wrapped it with a mic drop moment. This Maher, though, seems less interested in playing to expectations. Maybe he's tired of the outrage loop. Maybe he senses the audience is too. Or perhaps he's starting to rethink where the real threat to open dialogue lies. Whatever the case, Tapper didn't get the viral moment he was hoping for, just silence. And in today's media landscape, that silence said a lot.
I'm just not going to pre-hate anything. I'm just going to hope for the best, and then when something serious happens, I'll comment on that. Otherwise, I have new rules and monologue as a place in the show every week to talk about invading Greenland and annexing Canada and other stuff that's perfect for comedy, but I'm not going to take it seriously.
You could see it on Jake Tapper's face. Confusion, frustration, maybe even disbelief. This wasn't the Bill Maher he expected. Tapper seemed ready for the old Maher, sharp, rapid fire, and ready to tear into Trump. Instead, he got a different version, a more disillusioned Maher. One clearly fed up with what he sees happening on the far left. Maher didn't come to play into partisan expectations. His message was clear. The left, in his view, has veered off course, caught up in identity politics, performative outrage, and rigid ideological tests. And he's not staying silent about it. He hasn't switched sides, and he's not pandering to conservatives. He's voicing what many on the left might be thinking but won't say, that the movement he once championed now feels foreign, and its current direction may be alienating more people than it's inspiring. If no one else is willing to call it out, Maher seems ready to take that stand, alone if he has to.
Reading an election book, and one of the things I just stumbled on was a monologue you gave in October 2023, in which you warned the Democratic Party of Ruth Bader Biden. You were saying the American people think he's too old. You're worried about this. You had a great line about it doesn't matter if he's a national treasure and has done great things. If you got on an airplane and you heard that Buzz Aldrin was the pilot, you'd get off. I'm sorry for botching your very funny joke. But they didn't listen to you, but you were proven correct.
Yeah, and I felt I had standing to make that case because I had for so many years been the only person I know on television who was consistently railing against ageism.
Before we go any further, here's an observation worth sharing. More and more voices on the left are suddenly jumping to critique Biden after the election fallout. Books are popping up everywhere, all echoing the same theme: his age and cognitive decline. What's striking is how these concerns were once dismissed as fringe or conspiratorial. Back then, raising questions about Biden's mental sharpness meant being ridiculed or labeled. Now those same critiques are being repackaged as insightful commentary, with bestseller deals to match. It's not about rescuing the party. It's about protecting personal brands, one carefully crafted take at a time.
I have a relationship with people who want to hear what I think is the truth, and I'm going to present both sides. And they may not be fair and balanced. There may not be equal weight put to each side, because that's not what the truth is. The truth isn't always 50-50.
Right.
So I live with that, but it gets more difficult because we're so tribal now.
I genuinely believe that if more media outlets followed Bill Maher's example, speaking truthfully without taking sides, America would be in a far better place. Maher may lean liberal, but he's one of the few willing to call out the absurdity on all sides. That's what journalism should be: truth over tribe, facts over spin. Unfortunately, many media organizations today seem more focused on pleasing their base than informing the public. That kind of partisan reporting only deepens division and mistrust. But imagine a media landscape where honesty came before loyalty, where journalists held their own side accountable too. America doesn't need more spin, it needs more courage. And if more newsrooms adopted Maher's mindset, we might finally get the honest, reality-based conversations this country needs.
This was a case, okay, where Biden was too old. Having made that case that it's a case-by-case basis, I was now saying, yes, some of those cases are that the person just is too old for the job. And he was going to be, much like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, someone who was seen in history as one who stayed at the fair too long and cost his party dearly. And he did. And, you know, I don't think history is going to treat Joe Biden kindly for doing that.
Jake Tapper stepped in to defend President Biden, repeating the familiar line: age is just a number. He pointed to older politicians still thriving in public life, arguing that Biden shouldn't be counted out based on age alone. But Bill Maher wasn't convinced. Maher pushed back, saying age isn't the issue, capability is. He emphasized that Biden's verbal slips, physical stumbles, and moments of mental fog aren't just harmless quirks. They're warning signs. Whether someone is 60 or 80, Maher argued, what matters is whether they can handle the intense demands of the presidency. According to Maher, this role isn't a ceremonial gig. It requires energy, focus, and clarity. And in his view, Biden simply isn't showing those qualities. So when Tapper tried once more to get Maher to soften his stance, he threw out one more challenge. Listen to this.
I've spent a lot of time criticizing you. You told me a couple years ago on air that you were afraid of what Trump could theoretically do if he ever were returned to the White House. How do you feel now?
Yeah, it's possible. Do I think he's going to start arresting comedians? I don't, but it's possible. And look, anything's possible with this guy. I'll put it this way. When George Bush was in the White House, it never even entered my mind. Never entered my mind that I couldn't say whatever I wanted to say without repercussions. And that's one of the great things about living in America. And we take America for granted and that kind of stuff, and maybe we can't anymore. So we'll see. But am I going to let it affect what I do? No. I mean, the day I feel like I can't say what I want without going to Guantanamo Bay.
At a certain point, it was hard not to feel a little sympathy for Jake Tapper. Every attempt to steer the conversation toward a typical anti-Trump soundbite fell flat. Maher wasn't just sidestepping. He was outmaneuvering with calm precision. Each time Tapper tried to guide things in a familiar direction, Maher flipped the script with unexpected clarity. It was like watching a chess master outplay someone who didn't even realize the game had shifted. The interview was clearly set up to draw criticism of Trump, but Maher wasn't playing along. He wasn't picking sides. He was calling out hypocrisy wherever he saw it. And this time, it wasn't coming from Trump. It was coming from the very narrative Tapper seemed to be defending. When a guest goes off script and refuses to play the partisan game, the whole setup starts to unravel. And that's exactly what happened here.
I want to ask you before you go, and congratulations again on the special, but there's talk promulgated by you about maybe you quitting the HBO show, about maybe not touring anymore. Well, you said something to Jane Fonda about thinking about that. Where are you in your career? You still got a lot of good stand-up, a lot of good jokes in you, right? Like, tell us what's next.
Okay. I am stopping doing stand-up just because I'm tired of touring, just because I've been doing it for 40 years. I love it. Look, I love nothing more than being on stage somewhere telling jokes to strangers. It's been my entire life. It's been the most consistent thing in my life. But for those people who say to me, why don't you just do it a little bit? You can't do it a little bit. Stand-up is like being a boxer. You have to be in training. You can't just walk up there and do it. So I've been in training for 40 years. I need a break. And I'm tired of the travel. I'm tired of dragging my ass out of bed on Saturday morning to go to some place after I worked so hard on real time all week. Maybe I'll go back to it. But, you know, I have a podcast.
The interview wrapped in under 7 minutes, remarkably short for a segment of that kind. Why? Because Tapper had clearly had enough. Maher's responses weren't what he expected, and definitely not what he was prepared to handle. Tapper looked visibly frustrated as his usual talking points fell flat, and Maher's quiet honesty disrupted the flow. But this moment points to a bigger issue, the media echo chamber. When someone like Maher, long considered a liberal voice, offers a different perspective, the reaction isn't dialogue, it's discomfort. Instead of engaging, they disengage. Instead of debate, they shut it down. It's not about winning arguments. It's about protecting a narrative. That's what happened here. Tapper didn't lose a debate. He lost control of the conversation. And when that happens, the fallback move is always the same. End the segment, cut the mic, move on. Maher's unwillingness to repeat the expected script revealed how fragile the echo chamber really is. If open debate mattered more than narrative control, American discourse might finally breathe a little easier. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content just like this.